Hello, you're watching Bumble and Kimber. Two members of the cricketing community have had more jobs within the sport than it's possible to list in this intro. Lots to talk about on our regular show. We're going to be talking about Indian cricket, Australian cricket, English cricket. We've got some one-offs. Who would you choose, Glenn McGrath or Jasprit Bumrah? You can choose one. Find out who the boys select in this week's Bumble and Kimber. Where's it all gone wrong at Lancashire? Your old county.
Yeah, it is. They're in the doldrums. Just coming down on the train, I've seen that Mark Chilton, who's the director of cricket, has just done a 3-part interview of, the troubles that they had and the struggles, and he didn't think they'd do that well in the championship. It'd be a struggle, but he's convinced that they've got the right people in the background to bring it forward again. You don't
sound as convinced.
I have my own views. That the overseas players were poor, really poor. They have a number of players who prefer white ball and won't play red ball, so that hinders them. And they're good players. You'd like to think that somewhere down the line, Liam Livingstone, Luke Wood, Phil Salt. Josh Butley, you can forget him.
Liam Livingstone's got a really good first-class record.
I thought he could have played Test match cricket, but he's gone down the white ball route, so that has been a hindrance. At the top, right, the very top of the club, that I've always been used to since 1965, to having a hands-on chairman who's he's on top of the game. And just a question that I'd mildly ask, politely, because it's my club, is cricket the priority? Is it a cricket club? Is it still a cricket club?
A lot of functions.
Or a hotel.
A lot of concerts.
Or is it a stadium?
Yeah.
So they've got to address that.
How much money are they getting? Because they're going down, right?
Yeah.
How much money do you lose from going from Division 1 to Division 2?
No, I wouldn't know that, but it'd be a significant amount for Lancashire, because they've stretched themselves, there's no doubt, with the building of the hotel.
Yeah.
But again, remuneration for that will come in through Man United. Those hotels are full every United game, so they've got to pull the socks up, Man United. Or they'll get relegated as well.
On all of Lancashire.
Yeah, but just as an aside, the fella Jim Ratcliffe has gone into Manchester United with a quarter stake. This guy is mega rich, and he's a Mancunian. I think he's from Failsworth, district of Manchester, Man United fan. Just think of this, and you could just picture Man United there. And then there's a Talbot Road and Chester Road and the old town hall in the middle and Lancashire County Cricket Club. Now, I think they're going to move, the talk is that they're going to move Man United football. They're going to carry on playing where they are, but build on that land that they've got a new stadium. If they did that and connected the way that these people, entrepreneurs, build now, connect the two and make it Sports City. Make that a sports city like Man City are. That's the sports city that the 𝐒𝐡𝐨𝐰. So I would think they might be looking to join up Manchester United and Lancashire County Cricket Club. And here's another thing.
Put a roof on it.
Well, it'd be walkways, and it would have a roof all the way through, and it'd be bars and restaurants and so on. Who's rumoured to be interested in 100 franchise?
Glazers.
Don't it make sense?
The Glazers are an American business family.
I'm aware, because
I'm not talking about
because the
Glazers windows.
The Glazers also own some American sporting teams as well.
There,
That's how I know who they are.
So just add all that up. If they've got the wherewithal and they've got the money, and the Glazers are interested in a franchise, 100. The one to get for them would be the Old Trafford.
I mean,
join them.
Having a look at 𝐊𝐢𝐻𝐿𝐻 Modi's Twitter feed recently, I think
he's gone off the scale. He's not happy, is he?
You can buy a 100 team for about 20 quid now.
Yeah, he's
did
piled in.
Did you have a look at some of the details?
Yeah. He's a powerful guy, isn't he?
But it's not just that. So without portraying confidences, like I talked to some people who wanted to invest in 100 teams. And I said, look, you know, this is what I know, and this is, you know, how I would look at it. I think it's really a bet between the market of English cricket and how bad the ECB seem to stuff up everything that they're involved with, right? And then about 2 days after I had all these meetings with all these, you know, mega rich people, the next thing we see is all their information is leaked, and the ECB look like they don't know what they're doing again. So you've got to be pretty confident that the English cricket audience is eventually going to love the 100 to be able to invest any money at the moment, right? Because you just assume something's going to go wrong.
If you know, the 100 is entertaining, there's no doubt about that, and it's terrific across the board for men and women. Yeah. And they're well attended. They are well attended. I don't know what the ticket prices are.
They're quite cheap.
You can't get away.
£30 for an adult and a £5 for kids.
You can't get away from the popularity. So, you know,
but the difference between that and it being worth 300 or 500 million.
Our last conversation here, and you were absolutely convinced if these teams were sold, if the 100 teams franchise was sold off, it would revert very quickly back to T20. Yeah. It wouldn't be 16.4 overs if the Indian investors came in. So I would think it's exactly the same for the Americans. They wouldn't want 16.4 overs. They want it longer because there are more adverts to get in. Yeah. If it's a 20-over game, you're going to get more adverts on their broadcasts in India or America or wherever you are.
So when you buy a sporting team now, I remember talking to Manoj Badali, who owns Rajasthan Royals, and he was basically saying you buy a sporting team partly because you know that the right cycle is going to keep going up, but you're also buying it for content, right? So you can almost, you know, we've seen it with, you know, all the English football teams. They have their own TV channels, right? That's part of the reason you're buying it. It sounds silly, but those extra few balls each game, there might be a silly run out. There might be a catch. There might be a mascot might get hit in the head and get knocked over. You know, anything could happen that can go viral, that can help your brand grow.
You want it longer.
The more you can get, the better, right? And so I think the whole thing's interesting. Like let's think about what ECB did. They went out of their way to name these teams very specially. No one, the Ambani family are in the 10 richest families on earth. If they buy one of these teams, most likely the Lord's team, right? They are not. They're going to want it to be the Mumbai Indians.
Well, Hampshire, it's announced today that Hampshire has been sold.
Yes.
How much that cost you, Bumble?
And I'm not sure if the IPL bit, I'm not sure how the IPL bit works, but essentially this is a family or a business that has created the Delhi Capitals and the Dubai Capitals and
They bought all the team. They bought a team
so
in the UK.
It won't be the Southern Brave anymore, will it?
No.
You wouldn't have thought so.
No.
Capitals? There'll be something Capitals, won't they?
I mean, if I'm buying it, I'm going to want to change it. Just to go back, so let's say the Ambanis buy the London team. What's the London?
Spirit.
So it's named that because of the spirit of cricket. So are they going to change that to the Mumbai Indians London Spirit? Or is it just going to be Mumbai Indians London, which is probably what you would rather call it, right? Literally selling the spirit of cricket at that point. I mean, that's where we are. And as I said, I don't think these teams are worth anywhere near the sorts of money that the ECB thought that we're going to get a while back. Is there a chance that there's going to be a couple of fire sales? And, you know, if you're going to buy a team, I would have thought Manchester and London are the two places, maybe Birmingham. Some of those other teams, it's going to be hard to get someone to buy them. Right?
Yeah.
That's why
the thing that I've just explained there about Manchester is sexy. You can see that. Yeah. If the rumour is right, and the Glazers had a team in the 𝐒𝐡𝐸 in Dubai.
Yeah, the Desert Vipers?
They had a team. He was there. I was commentating. Yeah. Mr. Glazer, I think it was Avram, was there for the duration. He didn't just pop in.
Did he take you out for dinner?
No, he didn't. But he was in the same restaurant as Rowan Gavaskar. Rowan, an absolute massive Man United fan, went across and said, and they were in a cup final. It was one of the Wembley finals. Can I just wish you all the best? And they started chatting, and cards were exchanged. And, you know, Rowan, he goes from Mumbai to Dubai to the hub, drops into Manchester, watches the game. He was probably there yesterday. Lose 3-0 with 10 men. Unbelievable. Move on.
Did you watch the 5-match ODI series between England and Australia?
A little bit, yeah.
Would you, at the end of it?
Zero, didn't see a thing.
At the end of that, would you feel more optimistic or a bit more pessimistic about England's white ball side moving forward?
Optimistic, definite.
Yeah,
Optimistic.
I thought they played okay, actually, because Australia didn't have a great bowling lineup in some of those games. I think that's fair. But I thought Australia was fairly close to full strength. I know Pat Cummins wasn't playing and Cameron Green got injured and they rested some guys. But I thought it was more or less what Australia wants to do. They want to bat very deep now and they're trying all these all-rounders, and England made them look a bit silly, I thought, at times.
They were, to me, and following it on social media and other places, it served a purpose for both teams. They were both happy.
Yes.
There were 5 practice matches.
They really were.
But that's bilateral cricket now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's how it is. There were 5 practice matches. They used as preparation, trying things out, working things out. Australia win on Duckworth Lewis 3-2. Nobody really cares, I wouldn't have thought. Don't tell Merv Hughes that it was a moral victory. Don't mention it. He gets a bit, he goes on, he bangs on, doesn't he? Merv, and he's a great man. Thirsty, gets very thirsty, but there we are.
So you thought England came out of that?
Fine,
Because
okay.
at 2-0 down.
Well, so who didn't? Will Jacks had a bit of a struggle, didn't he?
He had one innings of note.
That's it.
Duckett, I thought, justified his place at the top of the order.
Yeah, he's busy.
Bearing in mind, Josh Buttler's going to come back in.
Yeah.
It sounds like Ben Stokes is.
He's going to come back.
Change his mind about white ball cricket.
Duckett's a bit of a handful because you don't know where he's going to hit it. He's a real busy player. He's unorthodox.
Australia didn't really know where to bowl to him. So if Stark wasn't swinging it,
Yeah.
they didn't really ever have a plan to him, which I thought. I was thinking to myself, that's not, if Australia can't work this out with some decent bowlers, Hazlewood played and Stark played,
Yeah.
and Zampa. I wonder how other teams are going to handle Duckett. Salt couldn't play Josh Hazlewood at all. But other than that, I thought Salt looked like he was putting pressure back on everyone.
He
batting
could be
deep.
a red ball player as well,
Yeah.
Salt. He's got the technique, he's got the tools.
The big problem I think they had was that they just kept finding ways to collapse England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they would completely play Australia out of the game, and then they would just, like that last game, I
Yes.
thought they were going to make 450.
420,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there was another game too where I think Livingston
First
got
one.
caught down. Was it
Yeah.
the first one? So a couple of times I thought to myself, they're going okay. But remember, as we said before, I think Aaron Hardy opened the bowling for Australia. Like Aaron Hardy's never going to open the bowling for
Yeah.
Australia in a real game. They tried that young Cooper Connolly who struggled a little bit with, hitting the pitch at times. So it wasn't like Australia were always firing. But I thought overall I was a little bit, there were times where I thought this team could make sense, but they are still just putting the foot all the way down. And I'm not sure they're quite good enough or deep enough to do that. But the other issue is that their bowling still isn't. I mean, I don't think any international team is, any of the major teams, the top 4 teams, are going to worry about England's bowling in a World Cup semi-final or final at the moment. That, to me, has been the issue for a long time. Adil Rashid still doing a lot of heavy lifting in that side. Like someone like Bryden Cars, he'll always get you wickets, but he might go at 10 runs and over to get them.
Yeah, is he going to improve? And that's one that they'll have been looking at. Joffre Archer, they'll just look after.
Yep. When he played, he was okay.
He was fine. You want that.
The Lord's game, he was as animated and engaged as I've seen him in a long, long time.
I was listening on the radio and it sounded like he was pumping. He was really charging in.
He was.
So, there are things on both sides that they'll go away and think, yeah, that's a good exercise.
Yeah.
And rather than, you said, have you seen it? No, I've been in the car, I've been listening and so on. But I think that it's not really captured the imagination of the public that it is England, Australia. I think the public have seen that this is a bit of a practice.
When was the last time?
The crowds, though, can I say,
Yeah,
the crowds were
fine.
terrific.
Yeah, they were good, excellent.
When was the last time a bilateral ODI series in England captured the imagination?
I think the way that they've changed the schedule across cricket, just take England for example, you have stripped out, essentially, cricket doesn't work like any other sport, really. Okay, you've essentially got to say it's really important that England play Sri Lanka and beat them. And there might be a trophy involved. Maybe there's some World Test Championship points now. That's added relevance. But traditionally, there's no reason. It's their turn to play.
Yeah.
Right. But if you love cricket and you're invested in the game, you care. Right. But by stripping everything away and moving away from a position where you had one visitor a summer.
Yes.
It was an event, and you built up throughout the summer from T20s, 3 T20s, 3 ODIs, and 5 tests, whatever. They were always mixed around a little bit. You had narrative, you had jeopardy, you had reason. Now, can you even remember who England played in white ball cricket in 2023?
Oh, crikey. No.
Right, so that is a problem, because I could ask you, who did England play in Test cricket all the way back to 1970, and we'd probably work it out.
Yeah.
Now you're in a situation where these tours are squeezed in between other tours, and there is absolutely no relevance to it whatsoever. And if you look at the summer to come, or the winter to come, a tour, so the England summer finished on the 29th of September, and on the 1st of October, England fly to Pakistan.
Yeah.
Then they go to West Indies, then they go to New Zealand, and then they go to India, and then it's Champions Trophy.
Do you remember?
No relevance whatsoever.
There's 2 really fascinating bilateral series in the last couple of years. So England win the World Cup in Australia in the T20 World Cup, and then straight away England are playing Australia.
Yeah.
Like a couple of days later. And that one got a little bit of press, not so much press for, oh, we're watching cricket, but like, why is this existing?
Why? Yeah.
And then the one that almost got skipped was that I think it was after Australia won the World Cup in India, they played India in a bunch of games. And even Indians just went, why would we be watching this? We just watched the World Cup 2 minutes ago.
I'll tell you a relevant bilateral series that still resonates with people, and it was the one that was in 2005. Can you remember that very first? Can you remember?
Yeah.
And it was seen as the moment that England were going to stand up to the.
It was also interesting because
it was the precursor to the Ashes.
I was going to say, I think that was the difference. Was it came, and now you don't even have series where the same team who plays Test cricket plays it, and it's so hard to work out why. Like the Champions Trophy, I was going to say it's going to be in Pakistan. It might be in Pakistan. It's going to be in the UAE. It's going to be in Sri Lanka. It's going to be wherever, right? So why are England playing Australia in September? How is that preparing either of them for an ODI tournament that's going to be played in Asia, right?
It's about making money, isn't it?
That's what I mean. So it has nothing to do with that World Cup. So you're not even playing it. You're not even playing them now in the way that you would in, say, football, right? Where you have a series of friendlies, you get yourself ready for a tournament. We're not even doing that. We're just saying, what? We've got a week and a half free in September. Do you guys want to come over? And then we'll come and do a reciprocal arrangement, and you guys can tack a couple of one-days on in, I don't know, Geelong and Canberra next time we're around.
You gauge it, or I gauge it, by going into the pub that I go into the back room, which is male and female in there, and they like a drink, and there's a bit of a restaurant as well. There's not one person in the last month mentioned cricket. It's all been Leeds United, Manchester United, Arsenal, all been Premier League. Not one mention of cricket. Whereas normally, I'd get a mention because I've got in that room are Yorkshire cricket members, the members of Yorkshire. Not once has it been mentioned.
I'm with you. Not a single person that, not a dad at pickup or, the normal sort of stuff that you go into into local, Indian store and they talk to you about the cricket. No one has mentioned this series, like it does not exist.
Yeah, I would go into pubs, as I do, and people would recognise me and they would say, I see England did well against Australia. Not once. Not once. It's all football. It's all football.
What is the most underrated cricket ground in world cricket?
Ooh.
Pisara.
Oh, well.
Do you remember Pisara? You must have been to Pisara once.
You've got me there.
Oh, you haven't been to Pisara?
I don't even know what country it's in.
Pisara is one of Colombo's 19
test really? In Colombo, right.
Well, let's do it by country. Okay, so you start in Sri Lanka.
I mean, it's just incredible because in no way should it be hosting anything. And somehow you've got these huge buses going down and waiting for goats to get out the way. There's no like grandstands or anything. It is the least test venue of any place. Like, the parks that they have them in New Zealand?
Yes.
Yeah, and Malahide in Ireland?
Yes.
Right? Those are just parks.
Yes.
They still feel more like test venues than Pisara does. Yeah. And I remember that they had, they had like a chalkboard DRS sign.
Hang on, and you love, and this is a good thing for you.
It's awesome because it feels like you're going back to...
Malahide's terrific.
Malahide's great. You're not a baseball fan, are you?
I've been to a couple of games. I like NFL, but
so you
not
know, a
baseball.
couple of years ago, MLB did this thing where they made, remember Field of Dreams, the if you build it, it will come movie. They went back and they did that, and they got the major league players. They cut out a bit of corn, and they literally brought a bunch of people in, and they were like, everyone loves this movie. Let's have a game the way that people grew up playing this game, right? And the minute I saw that, I was like, oh, imagine if cricket just went, let's just do that. Let's have a test game in a Maidan in India,
in a
right?
Maidan,
or a village in England. Get a proper pitch in. I'm not saying skimp on any of that stuff, but make it feel like the cricket that we all grew up with. When I went to Pisara, that's how I felt. I was like, I've never been to this ground before, and I didn't grow up in Sri Lanka, but this feels like the kind of club that I would have played at in Melbourne.
But you describe festival cricket, how we play in England when we play. It's intimate, the crowd are right on top of you. I've been to a few this year. Fabulous, absolutely fantastic.
And they started doing it in Australia as well. They play a lot of Shield games in Australia.
New Zealand helps. You go and play in these park grounds. 6,000 people in, and it looks full and it looks great. Everybody's jolly and they're intimate. It's on top of you. You're with them.
That's one of the reasons the 2015 World Cup. It was very. Actually, you can take this one step further. I've just realised. 2015 World Cup was hosted in New Zealand and in Australia. Okay, and in New Zealand it was played at all the boutique grounds.
Yes.
So it meant that every game.
What's the one that starts with pucker with the weird steps?
Yeah, those.
Pukapura Park.
No.
Is that it?
No, it's not. It's.
He's close enough.
Pukapura Park.
Friend of the show.
Is that right?
I'm sure it is. It's like an amphitheatre.
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah. Kind of carved in. Yeah, absolutely beautiful.
We need a picture of this on the YouTube page.
Is that Hastings? Is it Hastings?
Is it? I don't know. I've not been there. Plymouth?
New Plymouth.
So you've got all these little grounds in New Zealand, and because they're little, you only need to have 3,000 or 4,000 in there to make it a really good, lovely atmosphere.
Yeah.
It happened all the way through. And I was in New Zealand for that World Cup, and it just, the whole country was abuzz. Had a brilliant team. Brendan McCullum and, all the rest. Meanwhile, over in Australia, World Cup. It's just a 2020. Well, no, it wasn't 20. It was a 50. We'll worry about it when it's the final. And of course, Australia won it.
Do you know what there was?
Two very different, and all the games were in, cavernous stadiums with the same amount of people going that were in the New Zealand ones.
So in New Zealand, it's an event. Let's go.
And New Zealand really took to that World Cup where Australia did.
Oh, they really did,
But don't forget, 1992, Australia did try all the smaller grounds, and England lost to Zimbabwe and Albury on a pitch that no international cricketer should have been on. So
Where's Albury?
Hey?
Where's Albury?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but in
I don't know where that is.
No idea.
Yeah, so in 2015...
He don't know either.
I know where Albury is.
Well, tell us.
It's on the border between New South Wales and Victoria. It's kind of like... Is this a geography channel now?
Well, you mentioned the place.
It's on the Murray River. Do you guys know the Murray River?
I do know the Murray River.
There we go. It's on the Murray River.
Okay.
So they did try that before. But yeah, I think there's an element of that I'm not saying every ground should be like that. So Virat Kohli came out a couple of years ago and said India should only play tests in 5 venues. Basically copy the England, Australia, South Africa method, right? And it's like, that quote is coming up again because they've had a test match where there was no rain on a day and they couldn't play because the drainage wasn't up to scratch.
But what a crowd though at that ground, at Green Park, Kanpur.
But when they were out on the field, those people absolutely love it because how many times are they going to see their heroes?
They're not going to see them.
Right? So that is their chance. And so there's always that push and that pull because you want I mean, essentially, we want the MCG and Lords and, Old Trafford we were talking about before. We want them eventually to have roofs, right? So we can play cricket more regularly, and we can, protect that. We don't lose games to rain and everything else. The only way to do that is for those places to play as much cricket as possible, so we can pump money through them one way or another, right? That's how that system works. But at the same time, I don't think we want to lose Kanpur and
absolutely not.
And this, what's the one in Canterbury that's in the park, and all these different Malahide. So Ireland's leaving Malahide.
No, where are they going?
So they're going into a sports city centre, I believe. And it's better probably for Irish cricket in the long run because it costs them a fortune to prop up Malahide. But if you never covered cricket in Malahide,
no, I've never been.
Brilliant, absolutely.
It is the best experience I've ever had because you.
What's that bar called? Gibney's. Oh my goodness!
You come out, so they actually.
What a bar!
They put a fence around the ground.
In the world.
Really?
Oh yeah, top 10 in the world.
They put a fence around the ground because there's a park, right?
Yeah.
And they actually fence off the Malahide Cricket Club.
Yeah.
And if you go into the Malahide Cricket Club, there's just you come out of a test venue and you're in your local cricket club. right? And you go through, and then, as Bumble said, you go out, there's Gibneys, but there's all these bars all the way around and everything. Yeah. And it's a beautiful...
Classy place.
It's just an incredible place to play. But they need their own ground, right? Yeah. They need to grow.
What about the Grange?
I've never been to the Grange.
Grange, fantastic. Edinburgh, fabulous.
We've got the Grange, we've got Malahide, and Pisara.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, see, the basin
Scarborough
is probably rated enough, so that's not underrated. Everybody loves the basin.
Isn't there a basin around about?
It is. No, the basin's got a public walkthrough as well.
I'll give you an underrated.
When there's no cricket, you can just basically walk around.
I'll give you an underrated ground.
Go on.
Headingley.
Oh, no, I think that's overrated.
There you go. I think it's fantastic.
Isn't Trent Bridge the most underrated ground in England?
No, it's beautiful. Trent Bridge is beautiful. Everybody knows it's beautiful.
No, I don't think. I don't think Trent Bridge gets anywhere near the credit that it should do. Headingley, I think, gets way too much.
No.
Headingley is all based on the deeds that have taken place at the ground.
Yeah, I wonder
when you're sat there looking out, unless you're looking at the nice new 𝐒𝐿𝐲, you know, blah blah. That is a beautiful building.
Yes.
When you're sat in it, what you're looking at is pretty grim. I'm not a big fan.
I'm a massive fan of Headingley.
It's also a real nightmare to get to that ground.
No, it's not.
It is if you're coming from the city and it's traffic so terrible.
Well, you could walk. It's a brisk walk up the hill. There is a little railway station, Headingley Station.
Edgbaston's the same. What a pain that is to get to and from.
Well, you can walk again.
There is an element of like...
Yeah. But it's 40 minutes from the canal. I do that walk.
There is an element of where the ground is really matters.
Look at Adelaide, right?
Yeah.
That is one of the reasons it's held up there.
City,
it's a lovely walk.
Yeah, it is.
You've got to factor that in.
I remember...
MCG, lovely walk.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like the MCG. For a massive, Coliseum, it still manages to have a identity.
Scarborough?
Oh, yeah, I mean, Scarborough's good.
Scarborough's, well, it's my favourite ground in the world, of any ground.
Yeah, no, but I think Trent Bridge is the most underrated test ground. And the people who go to watch cricket at Trent Bridge, seems to me, they are there to watch cricket. At times, I go to Headingley and I think, you're here to basically wear a Scooby-Doo shirt, a Scooby-Doo costume.
Scooby-Doo?
Yeah.
And, chase around and, just drink.
Yeah, that's good, that. We like that.
I don't mind it. But
Yeah.
I'd rather everyone was going for the cricket and a bit of Scooby-Doo.
Western Terrace, of course. At
Western
Headingley.
Terrace,
yes,
phenomenal.
Great.
But what is the best standing cricket in this country?
Western Terrace is up there.
Yeah, it's not the best though.
Is it the one named after the bloke who bowled out Bradman?
Yeah. Holly's stand.
Without a doubt, Holly's stand
is
by a mile in this country.
The Hollies and Western Terrace are vying.
Hollies and Western Terrace.
I can't believe I couldn't remember the name of the stand, but I could remember the fact he'd bowled Bradman out in his last game.
So, I mean, what about Lloyd's? I mean, I've done it this week in the paper that, it's so elitist that in the grandstand with all the champagne, they think it's so jolly to pop the cork onto the field every over, every ball nearly, and the steward comes diligently and picks them all up. You go in the Western Terrace and start throwing cans of Tetley on the pitch and see where it gets you. It's exactly the same.
I totally agree. I think it's
nonsense. Popping cork, ho, cheers. And they've got retired gentlemen with the school caps on. I mean, dear me, that's doubtful, that is.
Well, I'm often in the media centre. I'm often in the media centre, and it's at Adelaide as well. It's exactly the same, by the way. There's more people out the back just drinking champagne or in, whatever they're drinking, little creatures or whatever in Adelaide, than are actually in the ground watching the cricket.
It's a social event.
Little creatures.
It's a social event at Test match venues, and Test match cricket is one of those things that you can dip in and dip out. Yeah. You just mentioned Trent Bridge. You just feel that people are just sat watching Test match cricket.
But it's also a beautiful place to watch cricket.
It is.
Lovely ground, great vision, great sight lines.
And
not like Lords.
That you can
ever
walk
sat
there?
in Lords? Down the bottom. It's freezing.
Yeah.
It's freezing. So and some of those sight lines in, like the SCG, that's a pretty ugly place to watch cricket.
I've never.
Looks nice if you've just got the camera positioned at the ladies' pavilion and the gentlemen. Beautiful, right?
Pavilion's lovely. Yeah.
But when you're sat in it, it can be pretty awful.
On Sri Lanka, Pellekele.
Lovely. Oh, lovely. One of the grounds.
Absolutely beautiful.
That's in Candy, right?
It's funny
up in the hills.
Because everybody talks about Gaul.
I was going to say, everyone talks about Dharamsala in India, which is great. But I don't think that's as nice a place to be sitting and watching the game. You just have this incredible background there, right?
_'𝐤𝐿𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿 with brewery.
Yeah,
lovely.
Yeah, exactly right. Wanderers for me.
And that huge hill.
Wanderers.
There's a massive hill in Cape Town. That shadows the ground.
The little mound.
Just the back of the ground.
Yeah.
Table Mountain, I think, is the word we're looking for, everyone.
Of course, that's it. Table Mountain.
I've got a problem with Cape Town.
Huge hill.
Little mound.
I've got a problem with Cape Town. It's when the breweries don't smell good. And there is about 2 or 3 hours a day.
I'd like to debate that.
No, come on, when the yeast is yeasty.
Lovely, oh, brilliant, absolutely. I mean, it's out of this world.
Don't get me wrong, a fresh
Marvellous.
beer from a brewery is incredible.
You mean. It's like...
There's some bad stink at that ground sometimes.
It's lovely, gorgeous.
So, I'm going to say a country, you tell me the most underrated ground. Okay, so, Australia?
Oof. Does Australia have an underrated ground? I feel like they're almost all overrated at this point.
Wacker?
So the problem with the Wacker was, did you ever go out into the actual...
Yes, I mean...
It was, for Australia, where, in Australia, like, the facilities are like 10 times better than any other cricket nation in the world. I really like Hobart, but Jesus, Bellerive is a long way from the centre of town. You have to, there's one road in,
Go on the boat. Go on the boat.
Oh, go on the boat.
That's it, go on the boat.
Hello, who works for TV and who works for radio here, eh?
What's the worst ground?
Oh, you should have got a helicopter, Jarrod. Just dropped us in.
Worst ground in Australia, without a doubt, it's got to be the Gabba.
The worst?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks horrible. When you're in it, there's no point of difference.
I'm agreeing with that. It
takes you half an hour to walk from town, and it's not a nice part of town.
Don't do much for me, the Gabba.
So I'd say that is the most overrated.
Sorry to the Queenslanders, but
no, I think they know, don't they?
I think they're
going to. Don't they want to bring their stadium down and rebuild it properly?
Yeah.
So I think they're thinking the
probably
same
in Sydney. Rebuild it in Sydney. I think that would be.
It sounds like a Channel 9 discussion, doesn't it?
But yeah, I like Monaco Oval. You two probably haven't been there, but the Canberra ground, it's got the old MCG scoreboard as well. It's probably the only.
I played there, I think.
Did you?
74-5.
Wow. So I
think we played it.
I reckon Hobart and Monaco Oval are the only two places that are probably cricket grounds.
Sure, I played there.
Yeah, everything else is a stadium, right? Even I know Adelaide, they've gone out of their way, but it's still a cricket stadium.
I wouldn't know, John, if you're going around every country, what's the most or the worst. We work on cricket grounds. We don't actually sit in the stands. The people. I know Brian Henderson, who's head of Sky Cricket and NFL, he does that as well. He's always said that our stadiums in England are not very good. Your seats are uncomfortable. The plastic seats. Why are they not padded? Why are they not individual? Where's my Wi-Fi for each seat? Yeah. Where's the cup holder for my drink? I want a lot more comfort for the money that I'm playing instead of a plastic seat with my knees up against the next one. So it's in America. We've done this before. We've discussed this before. In American venues, it's quite comfortable for the supporter and spectator. Very comfortable. Very
different experience.
And it's a long time to sit at a cricket match for 7 hours. No wonder they get up and wander around to the bars. You do it.
Well, you've been to the Oval. Like, it's so hard not to have your knees actually.
There you go.
Bumble was just talking about have your knees not in the person in front.
You know the answer is, don't you? Hendo needs to get Sky to pay more for cricket ground.
Well, I've left Sky now, as you know, so I'm not in touch with him. I could have been. Years ago, I could have been an influencer. Come on, Endo, sort it out. I mentioned I went to rugby yesterday. I was sat in a very comfortable padded seat behind their dugout. First rugby match I've ever seen in my life. Fabulous. I'll be going again. I had a very comfortable seat in a new community stadium in York. York's lovely, by the way. I live there.
See, the geography continues. When was cricket's golden era, or is it now?
Oh, golden era.
So the first golden era was supposed to be in the early 1900s, sort of the end of Grace, Ranji, Hobbs, Trumper, all mixing together. But if you go back, it's 3 white teams and a lot of county cricket, right? Like, I don't think we can...
But is that was that decided 50 years after that it was the
No, I
golden
think
era?
even at the
or
time...
At the time, everyone was like,
I think at the time, what had happened is cricket had gone from people averaging 20, having a good career, to averaging 40 and 45. We had 3 teams.
Uncovered pitches.
Yeah, well, they were still uncovered pitches, but without getting too much into the agriculture, muck spreaders had been invented, so we didn't have little chunks of crap on the pitch. We had liquid manure, which meant the pitches were flatter. Yeah. So people started making more runs. And South Africa beat England, of course, twice. So suddenly you have genuinely 3 teams who can all play.
So you got competition for the first time.
And the cricketers, well, like, you know, if you think of Grace and Ranji and Trumper and Aubrey Faulkner and Jimmy Sinclair, like there was just a good crop of interesting personalities and cricketers.
I suppose as well, Britain still had an empire.
Yeah.
So the relevance to Australia beating England or South Africa.
Well, so the Boer War
was that much.
There's like a gap in cricket where South Africa don't play, and it's the Boer War. Right, so they play right up until the Boer War, then they have a war, and then Boer War finishes, and Test cricket starts again. Like that's how much it was all interacted. So you can imagine people in South Africa, it meant a lot when they were playing.
The 50s must have been a golden era as well. You're coming into.
Well, so World War II has just finished.
Yeah,
problem
people
with
are
the 50s was the
flocking.
cricket.
Yeah.
The problem with the cricket, it was like people were scoring it like 2 runs and over. No one could make any runs and no one could take any wickets.
But if you look at the pitches, look at pitches, the grounds were full.
Yeah, the grounds are full.
Absolutely, with people in collar and tie and a suit and a trilby watching, probably with a pipe.
But if you go back and you read the articles and listen to what people were saying, everyone was like, Test cricket is really struggling. No one wants to watch it anymore.
Yeah. Was that mirrored at county game as well? Was it a slow scoring there?
I don't think county, I'd have to go back and have a look. I don't know if county was that bad, but basically part of it was we had defensive bowlers because you could have as many fielders as you wanted down the leg side. And so people would bowl in swing to the pads with like 2 leg slips, a fine leg and a deep backward square.
But there was nothing else to watch in sport. You either watch football or you watch cricket. There was nothing. There's nothing else to do. Go shopping or.
So I think the 60s probably, and a lot of this is because the West Indies become quite a dynamic side.
Right.
And England and Australia got good in the 60s. So you have 3 really good sides. You also have Pakistan coming through. You know, like having Fazal Mahmood go from not playing cricket to taking all those wickets. So I think there was an element there. But really, I think if we'll take your question about modern cricket away just for a step, I think the real era is the 80s. And I think it's a really important one because essentially West Indies, Pakistan and New Zealand are the 3 best teams in the world, and England and Australia are fighting for everything. India win a World Cup at that time, and we get the rise of Sri Lanka, which ends up into the 90s.
World Series cricket, when did that come in?
And Bumble was playing.
And Bumble was playing. I mean, a lot of people talking about Bumble.
Yeah, still.
No. What did the guy say when you made your 200? How much longer?
How much longer? Yeah.
1977 is World Series cricket. I would say through to about 1996. I think that's a fascing era of World Cups become really big in that period.
Is 20 years too long for an era?
I'm more than happy to just take the 80s. I think the 80s is fascinating.
When was the rise of India?
83.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Right in the middle of that.
So the 80s. That sounds like a good.
I would happily,
so you've got.
I do 83 to 96, right? Because
so
83 to 96, you have India and you have Sri Lanka winning.
And England
and West Indies.
And of course.
And England were rubbish.
The great rivalry is actually being played.
India-Pakistan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, you can't have a golden era when India and Pakistan are not playing. I would argue.
Is it fair?
When did they stop playing? 20 years ago? No,
less than that. But about 14 years ago, yeah.
So John, going back to you, I started in 1965.
Yeah.
County cricket is really suffering. And a couple of years before, they've decided to play a 1-day competition, 65 overs per team.
They rinsed you guys.
And it's you know, and with no restrictions, you put everyone on the boundary. So white ball cricket, as we know it, because that was red ball at the time, but 1-day cricket has been modified all the time and squeezed and made better organised with fielding restrictions. So if you look at cricket right now, as you mentioned, is it vibrant? You know, I think cricket in England is very vibrant. But I think that cricket in the UK, it's got its problems, but it's very vibrant. I go to a lot of league cricket, club cricket. Unbelievable the amount of kids that are running around and playing and participating and being organised. And so now you've got to have in local club cricket, you've got to have a women's team. You've got to build a women's team. And it's vibrant.
That's a very good point, because, of course, you could say that the golden era of men's international cricket was what was the years?
83 to 96?
83 to 96. But, of course, the whole game shifted now. So whether you like international cricket or domestic cricket, it's kind of irrelevant, I suppose. But this could be the golden era for women's cricket. Well, it almost certainly is. And it could be the golden era for domestic cricket as well.
Yeah.
It's just international cricket that it's not the golden era.
Also, you know, so we go back to the 70s, right? So you have Sri Lanka coming through. Denmark is obviously, you know, building a really good team. Canada are on the verge of test status, and Holland are coming through at those
Netherlands,
times. Yeah. Now you have Rashid Khan beating England in World Cups, right? Like it's gone so quickly. You have the Thai women's team. You have the, you know, Japan under-19s team. You have all these stories are coming up, you know, Oman and Papua New Guinea and all this sort of stuff. It's hard to look at that and be like, it isn't a more romantic time now, because people, if you're good at cricket from a random country, you're probably going to end up in a major league, or you're going to end up in a World Cup. That wasn't the case ever before, right? So you could be a great cricketer from Mexico. There's all these stories of like great cricketers from Fiji and Mexico, but their teams weren't very good, and so it didn't matter.
There's a lot of cricket in France. A lot of cricket in France.
There isn't a lot of women's cricket in France.
No, there isn't.
Because they cancel the leagues and just pretend. But there is a lot of cricket being played in France. Look, right across Europe, Germany has lots of cricket, right? And you know, we're seeing the European Cricket Network and all these things springing up, and you know, they're playing cricket in Denmark again.
Where's Blowers moved to? Blowers has moved.
He's France, isn't he?
No, he's Cyprus.
Is it Cyprus?
I think he's got a team over there that he's befriended.
Also, I suppose, the golden era of cricket, so when I grew up, the 80s, you couldn't actually watch a lot of it.
Yes.
So I'd watch all the home summer, and then I wouldn't watch any cricket from the end of August until the end of May, beginning of June.
Satellite TV came in what, 91?
Yeah.
That was when it was invented.
The first overseas televised tour was 89-90, and it was England's tour of West Indies. Very famous series.
Televised by
Sky. That was their first 𝐿𝐻𝐸𝐵.
𝐿𝐻𝐸𝐵.
And that was their first ever overseas tour, and it was a very famous one.
Well,
England went 1-0 up in the West Indies, and it was mentioned in Parliament. It was that big a deal.
Do you know 𝐿𝐻𝐸𝐿𝐻𝐸𝐻, he's the Australian comedy writer who made Wilfred, the big show that they made in America and everything. And we were chatting to him I was chatting to him about his book about the '99 World Cup. It's a really, really cool book that he's written. We realized, like, all the way through that, like, neither of us saw most of the games. Because we saw the Australian games, but you didn't see that much of any of the other games. So it's a Cricket World Cup, and we literally saw Australia play and a couple of other maybe key games as they came up. And so our memory of that World Cup is completely around our side. Whereas if you're a cricket fan now, you might not even remember your team's game.
So is satellite television, has it been good for cricket?
I think it's globalised the game. I think, look, the two big differences were, and satellite cricket comes along, and then straight after satellite, a satellite and cable and all that stuff comes along, Cricinfo comes along, right? Those two things happening in the 90s means that suddenly you can tell, you know, what Rahul Dravid's record is.
There's an explosion. There's an explosion of cricket in the winter.
What about you, Bumble, as someone who played the game through the 60s and 70s and early 80s to become a coach and an umpire and a broadcaster? Right. What was your when you sit back? What was the bit? Like, looking back, you think, wow, that was the best bit. 5-year period or 10-year period, not necessarily playing. I'm not asking you to compare.
No, it wouldn't be.
Playing,
it wouldn't be. It'd be.
What was the time
from a commentating point of view?
When was the game in its rudest health?
Early 2000s onwards.
See, that's another
just
fascinating.
2005. You know,
you talking just England, or are you talking everywhere?
I'm trying to think just everywhere, because, you know, Sky at that time were hoovering up everything abroad. So we as a commentary team were going everywhere, and the grounds were packed. They're absolutely rammed, and that is being broadcast back into the UK. So, you know, you debate that you've got to pay for it if you want to see it. Well, that's the way it works. Satellite television, you've got to pay if you want to see it.
Unless you're in India, of course, in which case it's a different model. You don't pay, you just have a lot of adverts. But
yes,
that period
but we can't have adverts because of Ofcom.
But that period there was not one that we just discussed, but actually it was a, not only did you have these iconic series, which we still talk about, VVS and Rahul Dravid batting throughout the day, winning a game after following on, that incredible series, 2005 Ashes, but also there were some amazing series in and around that time. 04-05 England tour of South Africa, 03-04 England tour of West Indies.
Also, you have
Australia being so dominant.
You have Kenya making the semi-final of the 03 World Cup.
Yeah, the
women's cricket starts. That's when women's cricket comes onto TV as well.
The greatest ever West Indies. Well, arguably the two greatest sides of all time. Well, not even arguably. The two greatest sides of all time, West Indies and Australia, overlapped for a couple of years. Yeah. You have this period, and crucially, it's before we reach saturation point. When cricket kind of becomes, like football's doing, elevator music. It's always on, but are you actually watching it? So actually, that's an incredible bit. South Africa was so strong.
Well, also South Africa coming back, Zimbabwe.
Sky have now backed off, haven't they?
I didn't mean to mention Zimbabwe on this show.
No, I'm fine with Zimbabwe. Everybody bangs on about that. I'm from the north, it's how it is, it's how I speak. And I very quickly apologise if I've offended you. It wasn't meant to be that way.
But that's
it's just
also,
how it is.
They were, like, by 1999, Zimbabwe's a great story in cricket. I know by 2003, they're a terrible story in cricket.
What a team they had. Yeah. They had a super team.
You know.
The Flowers,
and Bangladesh
Brandis,
as well.
Say again, Bangladesh.
Captain Campbell, they had a good side. Streak, what a team. Brian Strang, Paul Strang, Brian Strang.
We have just forgotten something else as well. T20 cricket kind of started.
Yeah, 2003.
2003. So 2003.
And the IPL started.
But again, now when you're talking about saturation, you mentioned saturation right now, but it's very evident that Sky have backed off. They're not bidding for that much. You can't see that much.
Well, they have changed their model, that's for sure. But that's kind of irrelevant, isn't it? Because if they don't show it, and they may actually do Pakistan, it'll be somewhere else.
Right at the last minute.
Golden era of cricket was 1983 to 1996.
Yeah.
2003 onwards for me, yeah. But
I was
everywhere. I was everywhere.
You're always everywhere. You are the golden era.
You're all over the place.
No, well, I wouldn't be now. I mean, I watch Sky now, and I think, well, I'm glad I'm not in that. Don't want to be part of that. It looks really hard work. Whereas it used to be fun. Used to be out and out fun.
Have you contacted Corky about his work in the mascot race?
No, when's it? Corky?
It was Corky running around with the mascots, wasn't it?
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Like
I thought you could have sent him notes on how to handle mascots.
Oh, crikey, no. I mean, I used to dread that. I had no idea what they were. Like, there's Nuts the Squirrel. Do you remember that fella? He comes as an aeroplane, Spitfire. So he's at a big advantage because he's got his feet. It was great fun setting off that mascot race and not knowing. I have no idea what they are. That's a giraffe. I can see that, Lanky the giraffe. There was 𝐒𝐿𝐲𝐿 and 𝐿𝐢𝐻𝐿𝐲. Come on, you bears. No. 𝐒𝐿𝐲𝐿 and 𝐿𝐢𝐻𝐿𝐲. There was one bloke dressed as a pear. That's Worcester. I mean, unbelievable.
OK, so you can pick one of these two fast bowlers. OK, it's a one-off match.
Mm-hmm. Where's it being played?
You don't know.
OK.
You don't know until they...
What format?
You don't know.
Also don't know.
You don't know. It's just you can pick one. Jasprit Bumrah or Glenn McGrath?
I'm going to pick Bumrah.
I'm quite surprised by that, actually.
Yeah, unpredictable, potent, awkward to face. So I want him on my team. McGrath, fabulous bowler. His record's but predictable. You would know what's coming. With Bumrah, with that action, because nothing ever been like it, and it works. And he's a big guy, so I want a big guy. He's a big guy. I mean, McGrath's a big guy, but Bumrah is as well.
I don't think Bumrah's that tall, though.
He is tall. He's big enough. I've stood next to him, and he's much bigger than me. He's big enough.
He's about 6'1", 6'2", isn't he?
Yeah.
But he's got long arms, I think.
That's it. So he's high action. So I'd like the unpredictability of what he would bring and somebody having to face him, because there's nothing ever been like it with that action. So I'm going Bumrah.
Was there anyone like McGrath?
Anderson?
It's not though, is he? Because Anderson swings it.
Well, yeah.
And
Predictable.
Not as tall, is he?
Pollock? Sean Pollock?
So I think McGrath's interesting because Ambrose and Sean Pollock exist at the same time, right? And they are slightly different versions of McGrath, and they're both quicker than McGrath, and yet he has the better record. So I think he's maybe a little bit more accurate than both of them.
Tall helps. Tall. If you're tall and hitting the pitch and kissing the pitch at that awkward length, but I mentioned that word again, awkward. Lassif Malinga was awkward and quick. Nobody had ever seen anything like it. Where's it coming from? Jeff Thompson. There's one. Who are you going to pick? You've got one pick. Jeff Thompson or Dennis Lilly. Who are you having? He's so unpredictable and rapid. Jeff Thompson, rapid.
What about you then?
He can hurt you.
So
McGrath or Bumrah?
I think there's probably an argument to be said that Colin McGrath is maybe the best new ball bowler in the history of cricket.
Yeah.
And Bumrah isn't particularly good with a new ball.
That was going to be my follow-up.
So if you think about it from a cricket perspective, what's more important? It depends on how you look at it, because McGrath's always going to get you early wickets in any format of cricket he plays in, right? And so he gives you, remember the 1999 World Cup final? Warne takes the wickets, but it's McGrath who knocks Pakistan away early on. Gets those 2 quick wickets. Pakistan doesn't know what to do. Warne comes on, cleans it all up, right? Such a huge advantage to have a bowler is always going to take new ball wickets. And I don't know if we've ever had anyone that's consistent. Certainly in modern cricket, when we can track it, he has the best average.
He's a wonderful bowler, absolutely fabulous.
But
and he got an edge to him as well, McGrath, which helps. I think that lovely fella off the field.
Also, great memory.
Yeah.
He remembers, if you say to him, who was your 268th wicket, he can tell you, right? Like, he remembers everything. And I think that was a huge advantage for him in a day before analysis. He didn't need analysis because he's like, I bowled to this guy, I bowled this way, he couldn't handle it, I'm going to do this again. So I think there's lots of advantages to McGrath from that point of view. The one thing I would say is I think it's much easier to find a great new ball bowler. We just talked about Ambrose and Pollock, right? Then Ambrose is on a very similar level to McGrath straight away.
Yeah.
Pollock maybe just slightly back, but again, very, very similar level. How many bowlers?
And 𝐿𝐻𝐿.
Hey?
𝐿𝐻𝐿.
He was pretty, and not a bad fielder either. But I think what's harder to find in cricket is a good old ball bowler, right? And I think that's why I think Joel Garner's one of the most underrated bowlers in the history of cricket, because he virtually never got the new ball.
Everything you said, he's tall,
very tall.
And
Bumrah is also one of the best old ball bowlers in the history of cricket. So if you're doing it that way, I think it's harder to find a Bumrah than it is a McGrath, even if McGrath might still have more impact because he's already put the opposition in a bad way. Whereas Bumrah doesn't take a lot of new ball wickets. Bumrah comes back later and dominates, right? But if you look at his new ball record, especially in Test cricket, it's not elite compared to other guys.
Take McGrath out and put him here, and Bumrah out, put him there. Okay. So who would or how would they succeed in playing in each other's eras? Because they would have played in different tournaments, different expectations, different pitches, different balls. Who would have succeeded? They both would have succeeded, but who do you think would have done well?
They're both going to succeed. The way that all I've looked at it is that I know what's coming with McGrath. He'd get me out and so on, but I can put it up here in my mind. I can see the action. I can see the mechanics. I know what he's trying to do, and he might do me. With Bumrah, I'm confused. But he's accurate, and I mentioned he's awkward. I like awkward, and I like tall. And so everybody, all the names that Jarrod's mentioned, like you come to Garner, there's nobody taller than that. Ambrose, tall, hit the pitch. Look at the problems Atherton had with that sort of bowler. With McGrath, Ambrose, Pollock. Did for Atherton every time.
We spent many years watching Atherton get pinned.
Or 𝐿𝐵.
So if you think of how they work, it's quite interesting because McGrath, so Australia pioneers kind of the back of the hand slower ball, right? Simon O'Donnell brings it to international cricket, and then Steve Waugh, Ian Harvey, and now it's a normal part of cricket, right? But McGrath actually bowls a different slow ball, and he bowled it in Test matches, which was the split finger one, which he got from Dave Nielsen, the MLB catcher, right? So if you think
Well,
about someone...
did he meet him or did you just watch him on TV?
No, have you never heard the story?
No,
McGrath bowled to Nielsen. Nielsen had the catcher's mitt out. And McGrath's saying to him, don't stand there, mate. You need to stand back. And Nielsen's like, no, if you're accurate, I'll just do this. And stood up at the stumps and took the ball. Right? Which tells you, because baseball pitches, it's about, what, an extra 10% quicker than a cricket bowler, right? So Nielsen did that, and Nielsen said to him, try this thing. McGrath does it and has lots of success. If you think about that, there's no reason why McGrath, with the brain that he had, wouldn't be successful in modern cricket, because he would be experimenting and trying to find other things.
Absolutely no doubt.
So I think he'd be great at that. But how do you play Jasprit Bumrah in the 90s is a really interesting one, because we didn't have a Malinga. All the actions in the 90s are pretty... I know we had Tomo, who he's already mentioned, right? If you have a slightly weird action, you stood out back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. Yeah. Bumrah is bowling the ball from, 50 centimetres closer than any other bowler, because he has this weird action that comes out earlier. So I think both of them would have been very good in their areas. The one thing I think McGrath would struggle about is, if you remember how 𝐿𝐻 eventually got to him, it was using his feet and knocking him off his length. That's what everyone does now. Scott Boland, no one could hit Scott Boland in the world, and England just went, well, we're just going to run at Scott Boland, and now we can't bowl his same length over and over again. I thought McGrath struggled with that, but it is worth remembering that by the time McGrath was struggling with '𝐻𝐻 running at him, he'd lost about 1.5 yards.
Well,
that's it. When coaching now, it's always been the same. If there are some that you can't get at down the pitch, so one thing as a coach was say, make him change his length.
Exactly.
Make him change his length. And particularly, say for Warren, you've got to be proactive against Warren to try to make him change his length. How are you going to be proactive? You're going to come at him. You're going to go down the pitch. Now, he might do you, but you're not going down the pitch to miss the ball. So always you're going to try. So if there's somebody like Michael Holding, you ain't coming down the pitch because he'll hit you.
And the same with Bumrah. No one can change that. So I think if that's one thing that McGrath would hold him back, I think, as good as he was, I don't think you could do it against Ambrose, Garner or Bumrah. I don't think you can just say, I'm going to bat 2 metres out of my crease.
No, you just hit you.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to pick the ball up, right? Yeah. Whereas I think with McGrath, you have that ability. Now, the thing with McGrath is, do you remember there was that period where everyone left everything that McGrath bowled? Because they went, he never bowls at the stumps.
That's right, he doesn't hit the stumps.
So what did McGrath do? He just went, okay, I'll start hitting the stumps. So he would work out those sorts of things because of the way he thought about bowling.
You've been thick enough to keep nicking it, so now that you're not going to nick it and not going to play, I'll start hitting your stumps or your leg.
Exactly.
That's the other thing, hit the leg.
Exactly. So I think McGrath probably works it out, but I just don't know if there's any era ever where Bumrah isn't going to dominate because he's so different.
So you look at Jofra Archer and the pace that he has, and again from a batter 20 yards away standing, he's dead tight in to the umpire. So he's bowling wicket to wicket right at you. The other lad who just hasn't got that pace, but he's exactly the same, who's come on with a massive explosion into Test match cricket, Gus Atkinson, bang, straight in here, boom, at 87 miles an hour, he's going to be a handful. They're tight in. So the length that he bowls, he can go either way. He can get you nicking it, or he can push up wicket to wicket like that, dead straight, hit you on the leg, you're out. You're just out.
Okay, to wrap this up, so you go with Bumrah?
I'm having Jasprit. Andy's a really nice lad, but McGrath is lovely bloke. A real nasty piece of work on the field, Glenn, as he would admit, but a nice fella.
And you go with McGrath?
He's hesitating now, look.
I'm going to go with McGrath because he can do the more damage early on, yes.
Very quickly, if we were to just go T20, would your answer change?
We saw McGrath bowl really well at the end of his career in T20, and I think he was the best. I think him and Garner were the best ODI bowlers in history. So I think we've seen more of Bumrah, so we know Bumrah's better. But McGrath would have been a great T20 bowler, there's no doubt.
Bumrah.
So you could pick one of them, one-off match, you don't know the format, and you don't know where they're playing.
Are they fit?
They are 100 out of 100 fit. Ben Stokes or Patrick Cummins.
Can they ever both be 100% fit? Don't both of them have missing digits?
No.
No, they got damaged.
Is it?
Damaged.
Yeah, it's just
so Pat Cummins misses the top of his finger, and is it one of Ben Stokes' fingers that doesn't work?
No, it's kind of like that, isn't
Yeah,
it?
he's got Ben.
So they're never 100%.
Well, didn't he say? Remember that catch at Trent Bridge? Didn't he say it was because his fingers like
bent?
that he caught it?
Yeah.
So maybe he's 100%.
There we go. Yeah.
His finger is crooked.
Yeah.
It's permanently crooked.
It was his dad that had missed the finger.
It was his dad.
It was
I
his
knew
dad.
they had a finger
That's
thing in
why he
common.
does that, wasn't it? Because it was a
Did you bring
symbol
this
to his
up
dad.
just so I could do 10 minutes on the fingers?
That's the
That's a whole
bloke.
new show.
That's the fella who with the tattoos, love and hat. He got love on this and a hat on this because he didn't have a little finger. He just love and hat.
So it's Ben Stokes then, right?
Yeah. Oh, come on.
Ben Stokes or Pat Cummins?
I
One
think
off
Pat
game.
Cummins is a better cricketer, but you have to pick the all-rounder in that conversation because he allows you to pick another bowler or another batter. So I think if we're being really honest, no one would say that Ben Stokes is a better cricketer than Pat Cummins.
I would. There's
I
one
don't
here
think,
in
I don't
this
think he's
room.
a better cricketer.
Well, you just said it. I've said it.
Yeah, but you were wrong.
All right, there we go.
Can we edit that out?
Yeah. No, keep it in.
So why is Ben Stokes a better cricketer? And then we'll find out why he isn't.
Dynamic, more dynamic, changing the game marginally more than Pat Cummins. Worthy cricketer, Pat Cummins, excellent. Lovely captain, nice fella. I'm having Ben Stokes. He's got a bit. I want a bit of that.
As a bowler, who would you rather have?
As a bowler,
Yeah.
as an out-and-out bowler, Cummins is better.
It's not even close. That's
But
not even
no,
close.
it's not. But,
Right,
but Ben Stokes will change your game. He'll change your game for you. And he can sense, as Flintoff could.
So better captain,
A better captain, Ben Stokes.
more
Yeah.
natural captain.
More natural.
Certainly
The
more
other
natural,
bloke, more predictable. Very predictable.
I think Cummins is coming into his captaincy more and more, but he has to think about it, whereas Stokes just gets it naturally. But let's be honest, Cummins has won a couple of World Cups from nowhere.
He's got a great
And a World
team.
Test
He's a
Championship.
great
World Test
team.
Championships,
He seems a wonderfully nice role model for Australian people.
I think,
He's fabulous.
I think
He's
if you were looking though at if I said to you, you can have a Test bowler who averages 22
Yeah.
over a player who can average 37 with the bat and 34 with the ball, whatever Stokes' averages are.
Yeah.
I think it would be, and I get why you're saying Stokes is better, but I'm not sure that you wouldn't just take the Test bowler who can average 22 because he's probably in the long run going to win you more matches. But the difference is that Stokes isn't just his numbers. He is the ability to fit an extra player into your side.
That's what I'm saying.
And I think
I've got him in my team so I can get somebody else in.
Also, it's worth saying that Stokes is one of the best fielders in the world, right? So he amps your team up a little bit more there. Cummins isn't a nothing on batting and has actually done some, he won a test match for Australia with the bat,
He's
right?
okay, he's okay.
No, but what I mean, he's not nothing with the bat.
No,
He's not McGrath.
No.
So if you think about it, what Cummins averages, let's say 22 with the ball, McGrath averages 21. McGrath gives you nothing with the bat, right? And Cummins gives you what? 15, 20, 25, whatever that may be, and can bat for long periods of time and can be a captain. But yeah, I think if you're talking about impact, it's Bradman aside, it's very hard to pick a specialist player ahead of any of the great all-rounders because they are not just what they do on the field. They are literally the ability for you to go in with 5 bowlers and 7 batters. Right?
It might be my outlook that you just mentioned there, impact. I want an impact player, and I'm going to go with Stokes.
So what about when Stokes can't bowl, which is becoming more and more of a situation that England are facing up to?
But,
Does that change your answer?
Our discussion was that they both fit.
I know. I'm changing the discussion.
Right.
So
do I want a batter or a bowler, is what you're saying now?
Yeah, well, you've got the choice.
There's no comparison between Stokes' batting and Cummins' bowling. You would pick Cummins 100 times out of 100.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. But I've now got Cummins, so I'm saddled with how do I balance my team?
Yeah, and
who's my wicket keeper? And have I got an all-rounder slotting in?
And that's the point of why Stokes is so important, right?
Kind of why I'm asking.
Yeah, so I think it's
a trick question, isn't it?
It is a trick question. So if you think about who's this, okay, so do we all agree Bradman's the best cricketer of all time, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't need to talk about that, right? Second best cricketer of all time is really interesting because people, before we get to Sobers, people might throw in Warne, right? They might throw in Tendulkar. There's a few different cricketers to throw in. But how do you go past what Imran Khan, Sobers and Kallis did? Because as good as they were as players, they also allow for you to essentially have another half of a
There's
player.
There's a name, 𝐿𝐢𝐻𝐿𝐻. There's a name, and he gets bypassed.
Would you have Stokes over 𝐊𝐻𝐿𝐻?
Ooh.
So one player, 𝐊𝐻𝐿𝐻 played, I think.
You wouldn't.
I think I'd have 𝐊𝐻𝐿𝐻.
You'd have.
How could you not have 𝐊𝐻𝐿𝐻?
Exactly, you'd have to have 𝐊𝐻𝐿𝐻.
Oh, that's right. I thought you were going to.
Oh, no.
I'd have
What,
𝐊𝐻𝐿𝐻.
a number 3 back?
Can I tell you my
somebody who's
favourite
taken,
𝐊𝐻𝐿𝐻
what,
story?
200
I've
test
got a
wickets?
favourite 𝐊𝐻𝐿𝐻 story as well.
Come on then. This is your platform.
South Africa are playing Bangladesh. And I think it was 𝐁𝐿𝐻𝐿𝐻 and Graham Smith put on like 400 runs for opening partnership. I think it might be the world record for the biggest opening partnership ever. Right? 𝐊𝐻𝐿𝐻 comes in to bat, and he makes 40 not out of 120 balls afterwards. Gets a red inker. Just genius level of, it doesn't matter what you guys have done, I'm here to make sure I don't go out. Like completely oblivious to everything that's going on around him. Whereas, what would Stokes do in that situation? He would have made 40 off 12 balls, right?
Yes, yeah.
And so, there was always that argument between Flintoff and 𝐊𝐻𝐿𝐻, right?
Yeah.
Of like, one guy was...
For about 18 months.
Yeah, for about 18 months. Obviously, it's no longer a conversation anymore. But for about 18 months, you were like, Flintoff he's gonna do everything to impact the game. And 𝐊𝐻𝐿𝐻 doesn't even notice the game is going on.
That's it. Yeah.
Well,
But
it's like
it's
that
genius.
one over, isn't it? Everybody talks about that over.
So
The
how
Flintoff bowls to 𝐊𝐻𝐿𝐻.
When he couldn't see because of the side screen.
So
And it was
when,
like,
you,
what did
when,
they get
you,
about?
when you're batting for long periods and you know your mental capacity and you're bowling, you've got to be fit. He's an all-rounder. So 𝐿𝐻𝐿𝐻's story, preparation at the Wanderers, coming down that cage tunnel from the changing rooms onto the pitch. We're doing an interview right at the bottom. They're going out South Africa. It's hot, and there's this ripped PT instructor or squaddy who's going to have his 10 minutes with them, and they've got to do all that running about and charging around. And they've all come out, and they're all looking very sprightly. And then there's a pause, and 𝐁𝐿𝐻𝐿𝐻 comes down. And I'd never heard him speak, this bloke, as he walks past us, and he says, "I hate this," and carried on in a slovenly manner. One of the greatest cricketers we've seen.
He was.
Would you pick Stokes over Cummins?
I would, yeah. I think as a captain, he shades Cummins.
He's a better fielder
Obviously,
too.
he's an all-rounder over Cummins.
It's an interesting one because he's not great at any one thing. Forget captaincy and
I think he's capable of great moments,
Exactly.
right? Or great innings. As a bowler, there's a bit of beefy about him, as far as
do you know what he is? I'll give him this. And I think Cummins is pretty good at this too. But when we looked at it, when there were like, I think it was 100-run partnerships in the middle overs, the two best bowlers of the last 20 years, when nothing is happening on a pitch, are 𝐊𝐢𝐻𝐿𝐻 and Ben Stokes. Their ability to get wickets when no one else could get wickets is...
That's what I mean by a bit of beefy.
Yeah, there's something incredible about that.
Beefy would do that.
Yeah.
Right?
And we know that there are players like Beefy and like that before, but we don't have the access that we can look with Stokes.
Incredible belief, Beefy, in that I'll just get him out. Bowling nonsense, really.
One thing I like about Stokes is, do you remember in Edgbaston, I know he didn't end up winning the game, but it was like he tried about 4 or 5 different things.
Yeah.
Like he's like, I'll try just my normal outswingers. Oh, that's not way. I'll try my in swingers. I'll try my bouncers. I'll try cutters. I'll try slow. Like that ability, and
that's
you can do
beefy. That was
yeah,
beefy.
And you can do that when you're an all-rounder, right?
Yeah.
When it's not your main job. It's harder when you're a frontliner. Whereas with Cummins, I remember that same game, he started bowling big in swingers out of nowhere, and it had been years since I'd seen Cummins do anything except just attack the top of off stump. Now, if you bowl 90 miles an hour at the top of off stump and you can move the ball both ways, you don't need to do many other things, right?
And you're accurate.
Yeah, as accurate as he is, especially. But it's really noticeable that like Cummins he will only do anything else as a last resort, whereas Ben Stokes is like, oh, I tried 5 balls in this method, I'll try 3 in this one. It's just a very different method about thinking about cricket.
And don't forget, Beefy in his prime was sharp. He was sharp, quick enough. Yeah, go on. Who's the next trick? It's going to be. Who do you think's better, 𝐿𝐻𝐿𝐻 Tendulkar or Virat Kohli?
Don't give him ideas.
Don't give him ideas.
Did we do that one? Yeah. Did we do that week 1?
Oh, did we have already done that?
Probably done that.
Can't remember.
I'm still getting hate mail about the
Tendulkar
Lara one, right?
Yeah.
Where I picked Tendulkar,
Yeah.
and Tendulkar fans are complaining. I was like, are you guys mad? You're complaining with me because I didn't pick him hard enough?
I don't look. I do not look.
So Cameron Green and Mitchell Marsh are both injured. Mitchell Marsh is hardly bowled, And when he did bowl, he then had to be rested the next game. Cameron Green has got a problem, and actually they're talking about him not being able to bowl against India in the Border Gavaskar at the end of the year.
Which is a real shame, because that could be a great series, and you know, we kind of want everyone fit from, you know, Mohammad Shami and Cameron Green. You want everyone fit for that one.
You want the best out there on the field, but it does raise a real problem for Australia, because they need to have some all-rounders in there, and they've gone from a position where they could have 2 all-rounders in their top 6.
Yeah.
They could get away with 1 who isn't bowling, but they're not going to be able to get away with 2. So if Marsh and Green can't bowl, who makes up Australia's top 6?
It's fine, because Travis Head took a 4 for the other day and gets one day. So he's an all-rounder now. It means that probably Aaron Hardy, which now England audiences would be more familiar with him, I think it means that Aaron Hardy is a possibility of coming into that side.
Yeah. Maxwell has just put his head up and said he wants to play red ball cricket. I've only played 7 Test matches. I want to play.
I don't know where he fits in.
If he was in India, I think he could play. But they're not going to play 2 spinners in Australia, are they?
I don't
No.
They're not going to use his bowling all that much. So Hardy's probably in Test level as maybe a number 5, number 6, whereas obviously we know Cameron Green can bat higher and may end up batting higher. The
well,
idea
he's batting at 4.
Hey,
it kind of gives Australia an out, because it means they can kind of move Smith back down to 4.
Yeah, so I think they can play around a little bit there with that. But yeah, I think it's an incredible situation to have Mitch Marsh. You can throw Marcus Stoinis in there as well. Mitch Marsh, Marcus Stoinis, Cameron Green, and Aaron Hardy are all Western Australian all-rounders who, in one way or another, are ridiculous physical specimens who can give you some bowling. It's a shame that they're all right-arm seamers and that they're not all that dissimilar to each other. But I think Cameron Green is a much more important bowler in Australia, because he's big and he whacks it into the wicket. Whereas Aaron Hardy, I think, was at his best in England when it was nipping around a little bit. So I think he's probably better for New Zealand, England, South African pitches. But you can easily, if they want to go there, but that means they're playing against India with a guy who will be on debut, right? Like, they're going to be trialling someone in a pretty big series. They did that last time with Green, obviously. So it's the second time they're playing their biggest series.
They'll come up with a player. Where does Dan Worrell fit into this?
He's English now, isn't he?
He's just English now. That's it. He can't revert.
Well,
can he revert?
I imagine he would still. Well, I imagine there is September the 30th. You qualify for Australia. October the 1st. You qualify for England. I guess that's how it works. That's what David Bedingham did, didn't he? Came to England.
But I think you can flip.
Well, that's what I mean. So he could.
If Australia said, "Look, we want you to play," what would he say?
But that's another issue that they have, and whether they want to pick an ageing seamer, because they've still got Scott Boland around.
I was going to say Scott Boland. Is he just past it, or?
Well, it's England just got to him, right? I don't think. Well, Scott Boland isn't any better or worse than he was beforehand. He should be tougher to play in Australian wickets.
They're going to go in with Stark, Cummins and Hazelwood, right? Yeah. And Lyon. But they need someone to bowl outside of those. They had Marsh they need Marsh and Green. Now, do Green and Marsh play as batters only? They can't both play.
Not in all 5 tests.
Well, they can't. No, together.
Yeah.
So Green, I imagine, plays ahead of Marsh. He's the better batter. He just hit 170 odd against New Zealand. He is their number 4. Marsh is their number 6.
So who's opening in this imaginary team?
Well, I don't know.
Because if they move
Smith down to 4.
So if Smith goes to 4 and Head opens,
yes,
which is what they're talking about, I don't think it's any better than Smith opening, but hey, they're going to go with that, right?
So Head, 𝐊𝐤𝐦𝐻𝐿.
Yeah, Marnus,
Smith.
Yeah.
Then what?
So that gives you Green, Hardy, and Marsh, right?
You can't have 3.
So you have to put Hardy. If they want extra bowling, which they are
who's the up-and-coming young batter that they can slot in at 6?
So that'll be Hardy.
Okay, but he bowls as well.
Yeah.
That's what they need.
He's your man.
Yeah. But that means they have
to
drop.
How old is he?
He's mid-20s.
24?
Oh, he's good. There he is.
So they drop Mitch Marsh.
But the problem is what he said.
Well, no, they've got the 4 bowlers. We need somebody to...
Mitch Marsh was just the player of the year in Australia, by the way.
He's not fit to bowl. So you're going to play the all-rounder who's fit in both disciplines.
So do you drop Mitch Marsh or do you drop Cam Green?
Any of them, whichever you think. You fancy, who's the better batter? Probably Cameron Green. He plays Mitch Marsh as a blow until he gets fit. Done. Team's fit.
I think they probably go the other way at the moment. If it's number 5, number 6, and they might have other ideas about what they want to do. But if we've nailed it with the top 4, I think they're much more likely to have Marsh at 5 and Hardy at 6. I think because Marsh is. Well, he was the player of the year. Whereas Green hasn't quite been at that level.
It's one or the other. You can pick who you want, really. You pick Marsh or you pick Green. I think the interesting thing is that, looking from outside, Smith 4.
Well, it gives them that out, doesn't it? Just to push Smith
4. Towards your head, 𝐊𝐢𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿, Smith, somebody, Hardy, keeper, 4 bowlers.
I worry about head opening.
Yeah, I would. If you're,
I won't worry so much about that. David Warner, you worry about him?
The difference between the two of them is that I think Head is a fantastic player, but I think he has a massive weakness when you bowl just at the top of off stump. I don't know. Did you see the Sky graphic on this?
No.
It's hilarious. The first time I saw it, and NASA's mentioned it 20 times since, so you know it's one of those things.
Is he still on Sky?
Hey, apparently, yeah. Friend of the show. There's a little box in ODI cricket where he has a strike rate of 47,
right?
Travis said, and everywhere else you bowl to him, he's got a strike rate of 147.
Who's coming up with this?
So this is from the CricViz data.
All right.
So we know that, but when you watch him, essentially it's where I've seen Stark do it to him, I've seen Bumrah do it to him, I've seen Jofra do it to him. If you just slam the ball at the top of off stump over and over again, Head doesn't have a repeatable defensive shot in that area.
So who's your other opener then?
No. I'm not saying there is no other opener. That's the issue here. Really? It has to be him or Smith. Unless they go with Bancroft. You would have seen Bancroft. Who's he playing for now?
Gloucester? Yeah, Cameron Bancroft.
He's back in Australia.
Yeah, but he was playing for Gloucester, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he won the T20 finals.
Wow. David Payne won the... I can't believe we're talking about good cricketers we've seen the last couple of weeks, and he comes up with Bettingham. Test cricketer. David Payne, what an effort that was. He basically won finals day on his own.
That's white ball cricket, I'm telling you. Yeah,
I thought finals day was like the spiritual home of Bumble.
No, I haven't seen it for years because I'm not involved. I'm not there. If they want anybody to call it, I'll come and do it. Stood on my head if they want. Anyway, there's the ad.
So you were saying
I just think there's
𝐒𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿, Marnus, Smith,
somebody.
Green, or no, Marsh. So they dropped Green.
Yeah, I think so.
Cameron Green's been dropped, Bumble.
I'm not bothered to play any of them. I'm not bothered. I'm not losing any sleep at number 5, any of them, which is toss-up.
I think just because... So one thing that they really liked was, and this is why I don't think Head should open, is I think what they had done to teams is having Head at 5 and having Marsh at 6 was like probably the most dangerous 5-6 combination.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it meant that both of them came in when the ball was a little bit old.
A bit older.
And if there wasn't nibbling around,
bit tiring.
Right. So I thought that was
push the game on. Push it. Yeah.
And I think the top order was quite defensive. I know Warner was still there, but he wasn't the Warner he used to be. The top order was quite defensive. They dulled it down a little bit. A bit like what England did in 2010-11, that period, right? Where you would dull it down and then KP and Pryor would come in and you're like, oh, God, okay, how are we going to stop these two with an old ball? I think Australia had set their team up like that. Now everything has fallen apart a little bit because it doesn't look like they want Smith to open anymore. They let Smith open because he wanted to open, but I don't think they want him to open.
He ain't an opener.
But neither Head. I really don't think Head's a red ball opener.
Well, find me another opener.
Yeah.
Cameron Bancroft, but maybe somebody else.
Yeah. Well, the guy it should have been, of course, is Will Pucovski, who should already be 30 tests into his career, averaging 45 by now. But unfortunately, he's retired, and that's the end of that. So he was the next big talent, and they haven't really found anyone else, sadly.
Well, they might need another because 𝐒𝐻𝐿𝐻's no spring chicken. He's must be 37.
Final hurrah.
Yeah. 𝐒𝐻𝐿𝐻 just this year, it's only from a few matches, has had his first form dip in quite a while.
Haven't they just pushed him up the order for Queensland?
Has he gone back up?
Yeah, I think they've asked him to open again.
So he's just got to a point, 𝐒𝐻𝐿𝐻, where, and it could be nothing, it could be just a couple of games, but when you get in your late 30s and you go through a few games where you don't make runs, and he's got a lot of interest, he's got his own YouTube channel, friend of the show.
If you could be one cricketer who's playing the game right now, who would it be?
So I think my answer would have been, a couple of years ago, would have been McCullum. I think he was the one that, and I was thinking about this the other day. I've got my own YouTube channel, You can find it good areas.
Friend of the show. Friend of the show.
Friend of the show. But I was thinking about like how many, like who, there was a year when I wrote like 30,000 words on my column. I wrote more words on my column than he wrote in his own book, right, in that year. And I was looking at my stuff and I was just like, video on Jasprit Bumrah, video on Jasprit Bumrah, video, and I was like, oh, I'm doing the same thing again. And it's Bumrah, because I cannot not watch Jasprit Bumrah at the moment. I find him absolutely fascinating. Everything that he does, I think he's getting better, which if you'd asked me 2 years ago if Jasprit Bumrah would have gone any better, I would have been like, no, he's already at peak. And I think he's actually a better bowler now. And I don't want to miss a single ball that he bowls. And I think, for me, he would be the one. And I was thinking about, like, in women's cricket, like, I love Sophie Ecclestone, right? Like, I love watching her bowl. But she's a left-arm finger spinner who bowls defensive. Like, if I miss a couple of her balls, it's like, it's okay. Still, she's a left-arm finger spinner. Do you know what I mean? You know, left-arm finger, it's not even a real art, is it? Right? You know,
well, a bit of R&B if he said they're just a step and fetch it. There.
Exactly.
Just step and fetch it.
Exactly.
I'll hit it as far as I want.
So it's not a real thing. Whereas with Bumrah, he's a fast bowler with all these incredible skills and everything else. And it feels like every time he does something new that I haven't seen before, imagine being at the top of your mark and just being like, no one in the world can hit me. Whatever I do next, they're just not going to be able to handle this. I just think that would be the coolest skill to have. And I also love the combination of being a fast bowler who also is highly skillful, right? So you can't get bored. It's not like just being like, you know, a big fast bowler who just comes in and does this. He does different things all the time. So it's constantly interesting. So that's who I would pick.
That's the most fandom I've ever seen you, I think.
Except,
do you know what I
except
love?
for all those columns on Brendan McCullum.
Well, since McCullum retired. Do you know what I love thinking is, you know, when say it's the final ball of a match or a really crucial moment, and the bowler is at the top of his mark,
Right.
and you're just thinking, I mean, with McGrath you would have known what he was going to bowl, but just the idea that that bowler is the only person in the world who knows what ball he's just about to deliver, always gets me. What about you? You would. Batter, bowler, keeper.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to be a bowler, a quick bowler, because it's hard work. That is real graft. I'd have to be one of the fancy dans. I want to be a batter, and I'd stick with an English batter.
Okay.
And so I'm choosing between two.
Can we guess?
You can guess.
A Root as well.
Harry Brook and Joe Root.
Yeah, you've got the two. So 2 Yorkshire lads.
Yep.
One with a 3 to 4 year drive to pass Sachin
very
Tendulkar.
Good.
So
I like that, because I think that's part of the discussion. Like Bumrah's probably only got a couple of years left, 3 years, 4 years maybe.
So there's
Would it
the
not
drive.
be better to be at the start of your career?
There's the drive for Joe Root. Makes batting look easy. Or do I want to be...
And an Ashes 100 in Australia as well. Those two things.
Do I want to be this highly talented, gonna set the world alight, hit the ball all over the place from anywhere? Quote from Joe Root, it's like batting with Kevin Peterson. So do I want to be a experienced Joe Root, or do I want to be Jack the Lad, Harry Brook?
Well,
I'm going to be Harry Brook.
Well,
I'm going to be Harry Brook.
It's really interesting. From our perspective, we've only watched the game, right? I know Jarrod thinks he played the game, but you played the game, right, at the highest possible level, and you know how difficult the game is. So when you look at the player you were, or remember the player you were, and you look at what Joe Root's got about him, or what Harry Brook's got about him, what is it about those two that you wish you had?
I wish I could be them. But again, when I played, and sort of let's talk about in the 70s, not in the 60s, so I was just learning. But in the 70s, when I knew a bit about it, I would be watching lads who I played against, Vivian Richards, or lads who I played with, Clive Lloyd, and draw inspiration to try to bring little bits into your game. So now that I see the game as an old stager, and I see the quality of Joe Root, and the skill and the finesse of Joe Root, and then I see a belligerent Harry Brook you know, from quite a slight lad. He's not a big, beefy sort of guy. And the shots that are now played by all players around the world, I want to be Harry Brook. I want to be that sort of player. Where I mean, I chat with Geoffrey Boycott, who was, you know, pad together, and you ain't going to get me out. I'm going to bat here for a fortnight. And so a lot of us had an element of that when we played. And then your Vivs come along, and Clive Lloyd, you know, Berry Richards, Gordon Greenidge, with a lot of flair. And you were trying to bring that bit of flair into your own game. Now I see somebody like Harry Brook, who's almost just starting. He's got flair in abundance. So I want to be him.
Who would you pick?
Well,
can I give you some other options?
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. And
I think Jaiswal's a good option.
There's the one.
So Andre Russell as well.
Can I just tell? Well, yeah, but Russell. So
the thing with Russell,
Jaiswal's good.
Yeah.
So what I like,
hitting sixes and bowling 90-mile-an-hour Yorkers is pretty fun, though, isn't it?
But see, there's a couple of criteria I would throw in there. Firstly, I think that the most exciting, and Brook was in there in my reckoning.
Jamie Smith.
Yeah, but see, this is the thing, right? I think you've either got to be English, Indian, or Australian, because you need to be playing the Icon series. So either an Ashes or a Border Gavaskar. That you want to be playing that. So you get to play that. You get to play that Ashes and Border Gavaskar, and England India is pretty big as well. IPL. I think you've got to be playing in the IPL. Just from your own experience perspective, the biggest show in town for 2 months a year. Even forget the money, just to be playing in it.
Yeah.
I live in Yorkshire. I don't think I can forget the money.
Well, then don't forget the money.
No,
Throw the money in there.
I ain't forgetting
the money. All the money in the world to be playing in the biggest tournament in the world for 2 months every year in front of in the biggest stadia, in front of the most passionate fans. You've got to be in that. So Jaiswal, of course, 6, all that. Then there's the being at that part of your career when it's all stretching out in front of you. That must be a beautiful place to be.
Can I, as an aside, say that I came from King's Cross in a car, driven by an Indian chap, and we were chatting cricket, and he said, I mean, he said, how much does a match referee or an umpire get paid now? And I said, internationally. He said, yeah, the test matches and things like that. I said, well, an elite top-level umpire. I said, I'll have a guess at £140,000, £120,000. Oh, he says, that's per game. He said, that's good. I said, no. I said, that's like for the year. Oh, he said, that's not very good. What? He thought the 120, 140 grand per game. He said, because the players get a lot of money. He said, they get millions. I said, you're dead right. He said, so the umpires and match referee should get the same. I said, I think I'll apply for a job.
I was going to say, you'd never have given up umpiring.
No.
Trevor said.
Let me just ask, so if I was to say it had to be a batter, and if I would say to you it had to be a bowler.
Oh, you'd had to be a bowler.
You can have a little think.
If it had to be a batter, I'd probably pick Head over Jaiswal, even though I know Jaiswal's going to have a better career, well, should have a better career, just because Head's a bit more of a slogger, and I enjoy that. I enjoy slightly being out of control, whereas Jaiswal's a little bit too... I think I get a little bit bored with being so technically correct.
Oh, if only.
Bowler, who would I want to be as a bowler?
Who makes bowling
I was thinking
fun?
Ashwin, it would be a fun one, because he's
what
like...
about Jadeja?
Well, Jadeja just comes in and bowls the same ball over and over again.
What does that mean? Get it done with. You'll be done in a minute.
Whereas I thought with Ashwin, there's so many, like he's trying a different thing all the time.
This is the guy who said he couldn't be doing with the
yeah, but
fast
Ashwin's
bowling.
only got like 3 steps in.
Archer.
Oh, Archer's a good one.
Yeah, but he's had so much, you know, so much injury problems.
I was thinking Wood or '𝐿𝐤𝐿𝐿 would be cool too. Ooh. Just to be like, that's all I am. I'm just
Archer,
not quite as fast as they know.
Archer with that ability that I could seriously get stuck into this guy. I mean, that's the thrill when I've done this so many times. When I first started in '65, coming from club cricket, league cricket, from a very, very modest family background, the thrill of being able to be paid professionally to open the batting against a guy who's internationally renowned, one of the world-class bowlers. I'm some kid from Accrington. Well, not a kid, I'm a grown-up now. And it's Andy Roberts, and it's Joel Garner, and it's Malcolm Marshall.
Jeff Thompson?
Jeff Thompson. And forget all this, we've got a good team spirit, forget that, it's me and him.
Yeah.
That's what it is. The thrill of that, you can't describe it. The adrenaline rush that you get. I mean, to stand there and this geezer's running in, and you know he's going to rattle up to 90 miles an hour, and you can't make a false move. You cannot make a false move. You've got to be sharp. You've got to be switched on. And for a period, you don't have a helmet either. And so just get out of the way. You know, that's a thrill. That's a thrill. But it's just, I didn't go to private school. You know, I went to a state school. I come from a family with an outside toilet. That is a thrill. It's me and him. Forget the team. Anyway.
I think we're done.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.